I thought marrying a billionaire would save me. I didn't know it would feel like moving into a palace built for ghosts. Because the man I married didn't sleep, didn't touch me, didn't breathe like a normal human being. And the more I tried to hate him, the more dangerous it became to feel anything at all. I learned the true meaning of desperation on a Tuesday. It was snowing outside, thick, relentless flakes that swallowed New York whole. The kind of cold that doesn't just bite your skin but sinks into your bones and refuses to leave. I was sitting on the edge of my bed in a studio apartment so small it barely deserved the name, staring at my phone, refreshing my bank app again and again like it might suddenly feel sorry for me. It didn't. Negative balance. Eviction notice. 3 missed calls from the hospital. My mother was dying and I couldn't even afford the bus ride to see her. That was the day the envelope slid under my door. No return address. No postage stamp. Thick, cream-colored paper that didn't belong in a place like mine. My name was written on it in precise, elegant lettering, as if whoever sent it already knew I would open it. I should have thrown it away. Instead I opened it. Inside was a single card and an address. Lucien Vale Enterprises. Executive Tower, 89th floor. 10 a.m. There was no explanation. No reason. Just an instruction. And at the bottom one line that made my breath hitch. This meeting concerns your outstanding debts. My hands started shaking. No one knew about my debts. Not the hospital bills. Not the private loans. Not the threats that came in the middle of the night from numbers that disappeared by morning. No one. Except someone powerful enough to find everything. The meeting. The next morning I stood in the lobby of the tallest building I'd ever seen. Lucien Vale's tower cut through the clouds like a blade. Glass, steel and silence. Everything about it screamed money, the kind that didn't just buy things but erased people. I didn't belong there. My coat was too thin. My shoes were worn at the soles. I caught my reflection in the polished marble floor and barely recognized myself. Dark circles under my eyes, hair pulled back in a rush, hope already half dead. The receptionist didn't ask my name. She already knew it. The elevator will take you directly up, she said politely, pressing a button I wasn't allowed to touch. The doors closed and my stomach dropped. 89 floors felt like a lifetime. When the elevator opened, the world changed. The office wasn't flashy. No gold. No excess. Just space. Vast, controlled, intimidating space. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city like it belonged to whoever stood inside. And he did. Lucien Vale stood with his back to me, hands clasped behind him, watching the city below as if it were a chessboard. He didn't turn around right away. "Sit," he said calmly. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried authority, the kind that didn't need to be questioned. I sat. Only then did he face me. Lucien Vale was not what I expected. He wasn't old. He wasn't loud. He wasn't cruel-looking. He was beautiful. In a dangerous, untouchable way. Dark hair neatly combed back. A face carved with sharp lines and restraint. His eyes, gray, almost silver, rested on me with an intensity that made my pulse stutter. He looked at me like he already knew how this would end. "You're wondering why you're here," he said. I nodded, unable to speak. "You owe," Lucien continued, "more than you can repay in 3 lifetimes." My heart sank. "I'm not here to threaten you," he added. "If I wanted to ruin you, you wouldn't be sitting in this chair." That didn't make me feel better. He slid a folder across the desk. Inside was my entire life. Every debt. Every hospital bill. My mother's condition. Even the eviction notice I hadn't told anyone about yet. Tears burned my eyes. "What do you want?" I whispered. Lucien studied me for a long moment. Then he said the word that shattered everything I thought I knew. "Marriage. The contract." I laughed. Came out wrong, broken, hysterical. "You've got the wrong person," I said quickly. "I think you—" "I don't make mistakes," Lucien interrupted. Another folder appeared. This one was thicker. A contract. 1 year of marriage. Absolute privacy. No public scandals. No emotional expectations. In exchange, all debts erased. My mother's treatment paid in full. My future secured. I stared at the words until they blurred. This is insane, I said. Lucien leaned forward slightly. You are desperate, he said quietly. And I am offering you survival. I hated that he was right. Why me? I demanded. For the first time something flickered across his face. Not anger. Pain. Because you are unentangled, he said carefully. No powerful family. No expectations. No one who will ask questions when you disappear into my life. Disappear. The word chilled me. Don't fall in love with me, Lucien added calmly. It never ends well. That was when I noticed something strange. The sunlight from the windows didn't quite touch him. The signature. I signed the contract 3 hours later. Not because I trusted him. Because I had no choice. When Lucien slipped the ring onto my finger, a simple band deceptively warm, I felt something tighten around my chest. Possession. Finality. You move in tonight, he said. That night I left my old life behind. The apartment. The bills. The woman I used to be. The gates of Lucien Vale's mansion closed behind me with a sound that echoed like a warning. And standing at the top of the staircase waiting for me was my husband. Immortal looking. Untouchable. I didn't know it yet, but I had just married something far more dangerous than a billionaire. I had married a secret that had survived centuries. And this was only the beginning. The first night. The mansion was silent in a way that felt unnatural. Not peaceful. Not calm. Every footstep echoed as I followed the housekeeper down endless hallways lined with art too old to have price tags. The ceilings were impossibly high. The walls held memories that didn't belong to me. This will be your room, she said softly. Your room. Not your bedroom. Not your shared space. Just mine. The door opened to a suite larger than my entire apartment. Soft lighting, cream-colored walls. A bed untouched by sleep. Lucien wasn't there. I waited. Hours passed. When he finally entered, it was well past midnight. He didn't look tired. Lock the door when you sleep, he said calmly, removing his coat. The east wing is off limits. That's it? I asked. That's all you have to say to your wife? He paused. We are married on paper, Lucien replied. Nothing more. It should have hurt. Instead it angered me. Strangers under one roof. Days passed. Then weeks. We ate breakfast together every morning. Dinner every night. Always at opposite ends of a table long enough to feel like a border. Lucien was polite. Never cruel. Never kind. He asked if I needed anything but never what I felt. He didn't touch me, not accidentally, not deliberately. As if he were afraid of something far worse than rejection. And I started to notice the details. Lucien never drank coffee. Never slept. Never cast a reflection in the mirrored hallway at the end of the west wing. At night I would wake up and find his side of the bed untouched, cold, pristine, and used. One night curiosity overcame fear. I followed him. The east wing. The east wing smelled different. Old. Like rain and iron. Doors lined the hall, all locked. All humming faintly as if something inside them was alive. Lucien stood at the end of the corridor, staring at a door marked with symbols I didn't recognize. Don't, he said quietly without turning around. You're hiding something, I replied. Yes, he admitted. Are you dangerous? He finally faced me. I am trying not to be. For the first time I saw fear in his eyes. The blood incident. It happened in the kitchen. I cut my finger on a knife, barely more than a scratch. But the moment the blood welled up, Lucien froze. His entire body went rigid. His pupils dilated. His jaw clenched like he was fighting something inside himself. Go to your room, he said sharply. I didn't move. The air changed. Heavy. Charge. Lucien turned away from me like he couldn't bear to look. When he finally spoke again, his voice was strained. You should hate me, he said. It would be safer. Then he disappeared. Not walked. Vanished. The apology. The next morning he was waiting at the table. I'm sorry, Lucien said quietly. For what? For being weak. I stared at him. You didn't hurt me. I almost did. That terrified me more. Why marry me if I scare you? I asked. His hands tightened around his glass. Because you are human, he said. And I am forgetting how to be. Hate turns into curiosity. I wanted to hate him. I told myself he was manipulative, dangerous. But then he paid off my mother's medical bills without being asked. He stood beside me silently during hospital visits, never intruding, never leaving. When my mother squeezed his hand and whispered, "Thank you for loving her," Lucien flinched. Loved me? He didn't correct her. That night I confronted him. Why didn't you tell her the truth? Because, he said softly, she deserved peace. And so did I. The dreams. I started dreaming of him. Not Lucien the billionaire. Lucien the monster. Standing in ancient cities. Wearing crowns soaked in blood. Ruling worlds long dead. And yet every dream ended the same way. Him kneeling. Begging. Not for power. For me. The distance breaks. One night during a thunderstorm the power went out. I panicked. Lucien appeared instantly, standing far too close. You're afraid, he said. I'm not, I lied. He reached out and stopped inches from my face. If I touch you, he whispered, it will change everything. I swallowed. Then don't, I said. He stepped back. And that hurt more than any touch ever could. I went to bed angry. Lonely. Confused. But when I woke up in the middle of the night, Lucien was standing at the foot of my bed. Eyes glowing gold. Breathing like a man on the edge of losing himself. And that was the moment I realized. Whatever he was running out of control. I thought I was afraid of my husband. I was wrong. I was afraid of what I would feel once I finally understood him. Because the truth wasn't just that Lucien Vale wasn't human. It was that he had been a monster for centuries. And I was the first thing that ever made him want to stop. The night I saw his eyes. Lucien stood at the foot of my bed, completely still. The room was dark except for the faint glow of moonlight slipping through the curtains. His eyes, those cold silver-gray eyes, were no longer silver. They were gold. Not warm. Not gentle. Predatory. I sat up slowly, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. Lucien. I whispered. He didn't answer. His hands were clenched at his sides, his entire body rigid like a man fighting an invisible war inside himself. Don't move, he said hoarsely. That was when I noticed it. He wasn't breathing. Not shallow. Not slow. Not at all. What's happening to you? I asked, my voice trembling despite my effort to sound calm. Lucien turned his face away. You shouldn't see me like this. But I am, I replied. So talk to me. For a long moment I thought he wouldn't. Then he spoke. And every word felt like a confession pulled from something buried too deep to survive daylight. The confession begins. I am not what you think I am, Lucien said quietly. I know, I replied. That surprised him. You don't, he said. I do, I insisted. You don't sleep. You disappear. You react to blood like it's poison and temptation at the same time. And mirrors don't lie, Lucien. Silence filled the room. Then he laughed. A bitter, hollow sound that didn't belong to a billionaire suit. Mirrors have always told the truth, he murmured. He finally looked at me again. His eyes were no longer glowing, but the darkness behind them remained. I was born long before this city existed, he said. Before money. Before corporations. Before law. My breath caught. I have ruled kingdoms that don't exist anymore, he continued. I've watched empires rise and rot. I learned early that power changes form, but never disappears. I gripped the blanket tightly. What are you? I whispered. Lucien stepped back, increasing the distance between us as if it physically pained him to be close. A predator, he answered honestly. A creature that survives by taking. The truth about the wealth. He explained it slowly. How he learned to adapt. How gold became banks. How crowns became boardrooms. How immortality required invisibility. Money is just fear with numbers attached, Lucien said. And I learned to control it. You built an empire, I said softly. No, he corrected. I hid inside one. I didn't know whether to scream or cry. Instead, anger surged through me. You married me knowing all of this, I said. You trapped me in your world. Lucien's jaw tightened. I gave you a choice. A choice between survival and death, I snapped. That's not a choice. His voice dropped. I know. And for the first time he looked ashamed. The first fight. I stood up, ignoring the fear still crawling under my skin. You don't get to play the victim, I said. You're not the one who signed their life away to a stranger. Lucien's eyes flashed dangerously. And you don't get to pretend you weren't desperate, he said. You came to me knowing you were running out of time. The words hurt because they were true. We stood there facing each other, not husband and wife, not billionaire and bride, but monster and woman. Power and defiance. You should leave, Lucien said finally. Tonight. I stared at him. And go where? He didn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. There was nowhere else safe. The intruder. It happened 3 nights later. The security alarms didn't go off. The cameras went dark. Lucien woke instantly. I didn't even have time to scream before the man was in our room. Masked, armed, shaking like he already knew he was dead. Lucien moved. Too fast. The man never even saw it coming. The sound that followed wasn't human. It was brutal. Final. Absolute. When it was over, the intruder lay motionless on the floor. Lucien stood over him, breathing hard. Covered in blood. I stared in horror. And then he turned to me. Don't look, he said sharply. But I already had. The monster unleashed. Lucien dropped to his knees. I tried to protect you from this, he said, voice shaking. From me. I should have run. Instead I stepped forward. You saved me, I whispered. I killed for you. Yes, I replied. And you didn't enjoy it. He looked up at me stunned. You don't fear me, he asked. I do, I admitted. But not the way you think. I reached out slowly, carefully. When my hand touched his cheek, he flinched like he expected pain. You're not proud of what you are, I said softly. That matters. Lucien closed his eyes. I have done unforgivable things. So have humans, I said. The difference is you're trying to be better. That was the moment everything shifted. The bond deepens. After that night, Lucien stopped pretending. He told me stories. Of wars, of lovers lost to time, of loneliness that stretched across centuries. I never stay, he said. Eventually everyone dies. Or leaves. And yet, I replied, you married me. Because I am tired, he said quietly. And you feel like rest. The words settled deep in my chest. Dangerous. Beautiful. Terrifying. That night, Lucien slept for the first time since I met him. And I lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling, realizing something that changed everything. I wasn't afraid of the monster anymore. I was afraid of how much I cared. Because loving an immortal wasn't just dangerous. It was a choice that could destroy everything I'd ever known. And I wasn't sure I could walk away anymore. I thought knowing his secret would make things safer. Instead, it made everything more dangerous. As once the monster stopped hiding from me, he started fighting himself. And love, I learned, is the most violent war of all. The morning after, Lucien slept. Not pretending. not resting his eyes. Sleeping. His chest rose and fell slowly, unevenly, like his body was relearning something it had forgotten centuries ago. I lay beside him, afraid to move. Afraid that if I breathed too loudly, the moment would shatter. This wasn't the cold, untouchable billionaire I married. This was a man who looked human, vulnerable, and it terrified me. Because if he could sleep beside me, what else could I take from him? Distance becomes impossible. Lucien changed after that night. Not dramatically. Not suddenly. But in ways that crept up on me. He started sitting closer at the table. Standing a second longer when our paths crossed. Watching me like he was memorizing something he was afraid of losing. And I hated it. Because I felt it too. Every look lingered. Every silence grew heavy. Every almost touch burned. One night I snapped. "You don't get to look at me like that," I said. "Like what?" he asked calmly. "Like I belong to you." Lucien's jaw tightened. "You do," he said. "Legally." "That's not what I mean." Silence stretched between us. "Then say what you mean," he replied. I couldn't. Because if I did, everything would change. The first touch. It happened by accident. I was reaching for a glass in the kitchen when my foot slipped. Lucien caught me instantly. Too fast. Too close. His hand wrapped around my waist, solid and warm. Neither of us moved. His breath brushed my temple. "You should let go," I whispered. He didn't. "If I do," he said quietly, "I won't touch you again." My heart pounded. "Why?" "Because once I cross that line," he said, voice low, "I don't know how to stop." I swallowed hard. "Lucien." He released me abruptly, stepping back like he'd been burned. And for the first time, I wanted him to burn. The argument. That night we fought. Not about contracts. Not about secrets. About us. "You treat me like I'm fragile," I accused. "You are," he replied. "No. You're afraid." "Yes," he said instantly. "I am." The honesty stunned me. "Of hurting me?" "No," Lucien said softly. "Of loving you." I laughed bitterly. "You're mortal. What's love compared to that?" His eyes darkened. "Love is the only thing that has ever destroyed me." The words hung heavy in the air. "Tell me," I said. "Who was she?" He didn't answer right away. "Many," he finally said. "Across centuries." That hurt more than I expected. "And they all died," he added quietly. "And I stayed." This. I should have walked away. Instead I stepped closer. "Then don't stay distant," I said. "Stay real." Lucien shook his head. "You don't understand what you're asking." "Then show me," I whispered. That was all it took. He kissed me like a man starved. Controlled but barely. Like he was holding himself back from devouring something sacred. His hands trembled against my back. And when he pulled away, his forehead rested against mine. "If I take you," he said, voice breaking, "it will not be gentle." I met his gaze. "Then don't be gentle." The kiss that followed wasn't desperate. It was inevitable. We didn't sleep that night. We talked. About everything. My fears. His past. The weight of eternity. Lucien confessed he'd never stayed this long with anyone. "You make me want things I shouldn't," he said. "And you make me brave enough to want them," I replied. For the first time since the contract. We were equals. The enemy's move. Love never goes unnoticed. Especially not in Lucien's world. The attacks began subtly. Stock crashes. Threats. Symbols carved into the gates at night. "They know about you," Lucien said grimly. "And you are my weakness." The word didn't sound like an insult. It sounded like truth. "I won't leave," I said firmly. Lucien cupped my face. "If they take you," he said, "there will be no world left to forgive me." I believed him. The promise. That night Lucien made me a promise. "I will protect you," he said. "Even from myself." I took his hand. Then let me protect you too. He smiled. A real smile, rare and devastating. I think, he said softly, you already are. The next morning I woke up alone. The bed was cold. The house was silent. And written in blood on the bedroom mirror were 3 words. Give her back. Lucien was gone. And I knew. The war had begun. They didn't come for his empire. They came for me. Because when you love a monster, the world doesn't punish him. Punishes what he loves. The message. The words on the mirror wouldn't disappear. Give her back. Written in blood that wasn't Lucien's. I stood there for a long time, staring at my reflection fractured by red letters, my heart beat loud in my ears. Lucien was gone. No note. No warning. No goodbye. Only the certainty that he had left to protect me, or to hunt. I didn't know which scared me more. Alone in the palace. The mansion felt different without him. Not empty. Unprotected. Every shadow felt alive. Every sound felt like a warning. Security tripled. Guards I didn't recognize watched me with fear instead of loyalty. They're afraid of him, I realized. Not Lucien the CEO. Lucien the Immortal. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying his last promise in my head. I will protect you. Even from myself. And suddenly I understood. He hadn't left because he stopped loving me. He left because he loved me too much. The truth from the past. It was Lucien's oldest advisor who finally told me the truth. They are called the Covenant, he said quietly. Immortals like Lucien. Older. Crueler. What do they want? I asked. He hesitated. Balance. I laughed bitterly. There is no balance in monsters. There is, he corrected. And Lucien broke it the moment he chose you. My chest tightened. Because I'm human? Because you matter. That was when I realized. I wasn't collateral damage. I was the reason. The abduction. They didn't come at night. They came in the morning. Bright sunlight. Calm air. No warning. One moment I was walking through the garden. The next. Pain. Darkness. And silence. The cage. I woke up somewhere cold. Stone beneath my hands. Iron around my wrists. The room smelled old. Like centuries of regret and blood. You're smaller than I expected, a voice said. I lifted my head. They stood in a circle. Men and women who looked human but felt wrong. Their eyes glowed faintly like dying stars. You are Lucien Vale's weakness, one of them said calmly. I'm his wife, I replied. Laughter echoed. He does not own you, another said. No, I whispered. But he chose me. That was when they realized. This wasn't fear in my voice. It was defiance. Lucien unleashed. Lucien felt it the moment they touched me. The bond snapped tight. The city felt it too. Markets crashed overnight. Power grids failed. Ancient symbols appeared across skyscrapers. Lucien didn't hide anymore. He burned safe houses. Destroyed alliances. Became the thing legends warned about. He's breaking the rules, the Covenant said. He is the rules, I answered. And I knew. The world would not survive his love unscarred. The reunion. When Lucien found me, the room shook. Walls cracked. Blood spilled. He stood there, eyes blazing gold, suit torn, control gone. He didn't look at anyone else. Only me. They held a blade to my throat. Lucien dropped to his knees. I will give you everything, he said. The empire. The city. Myself. I screamed. No. They smiled. This was what they wanted. To see a god beg. This. Lucien looked at me then. Not as a ruler. Not as a monster. But as a man in love. I'm sorry, he whispered. And I knew what he was about to do. Lucien, don't. I will not outlive you, he said quietly. I won't. Power surged through the room. Final. Lucien was ready to die. For me. My sacrifice. Stop, I said. Everyone froze. I'll go with you, I told the Covenant. Leave him. Lucien shook his head violently. No. I choose this, I said. The same way he chose me. They studied me. A human willing to walk into eternity's shadow. Very well, they said. And just like that, I was gone again. The broken king. Lucien screamed. The sound shattered stone. But he didn't follow. Because for the first time in centuries, he trusted someone else's choice. And it nearly destroyed him. They took me somewhere far beyond cities. Far beyond time. And as the gates closed behind me, one truth settled into my bones. Love had cost Lucien everything. And if I wanted us to survive, I would have to become something more than human. They thought love was his weakness. They were wrong. Love was the reason the monster became a king. And the reason a human woman chose eternity. Where time doesn't exist. I don't know how long I was gone. Time didn't move the way it used to. There was no sun. No sky. No clocks ticking on walls. Only a vast, endless space made of stone and light. An ancient sanctuary where the Covenant judged monsters like Lucien and erased mistakes like me. You are brave, one of them said. Or foolish. Both, I replied. They studied me like I was a curiosity. A human who had willingly walked into the world of immortals. Lucien Vale was never meant to love, another said. It destabilizes balance. And yet, I answered, you let him live. Silence followed. Because he was useful, they said. That was when I understood. To them Lucien was not a man. He was a weapon. The trial. They tested me. Not with pain but with truth. They showed me Lucien's past. His first love, burned at the stake. A queen who poisoned herself rather than outlive her children. A woman who begged him to forget her before time did it for him. Century after century of loss. This is your future, the Covenant said. You will age. You will die. And he will remain. My chest tightened. And yet, I said softly, he still chose me. They circled closer. Why do you choose him? The answer came without hesitation. Because he tries to be good in a world that never allowed him to be. That was the moment everything changed. The offer. They gave me a choice. You may leave, they said. Human. Safe. Forgotten. I knew what that meant. Lucien would let me go. He would grieve. And then he would bury the pain and return to the monster he used to be. Or, you may join him, they continued. Not as his weakness, but as his equal. Immortality. Power. Eternity. But there is a price, they warned. Once chosen, it cannot be undone. I closed my eyes. I thought of the cold mansion. The quiet dinners. The man who learned how to sleep again just because I was beside him. I choose him, I said. The transformation. It wasn't violent. It was intimate. Light burned through my veins, not pain but awakening. Memories stretched. Time expanded. I felt stronger. Sharper. Aware in ways I never had been. And somewhere deep in my chest something ancient answered back. You are no longer human, the Covenant said. I looked at my hands. They were steady. Good, I replied. Neither is the man I love. Lucien's destruction. Lucien was unraveling. Without me the city felt wrong. Too loud. Too fragile. He stopped pretending. Boardrooms trembled when he entered. Markets bent to his will. And still it wasn't enough. Because power meant nothing without the one person who had seen him and stayed. When the Covenant returned him to the sanctuary, he was ready to burn it down. I said, he froze. As I was standing there. Alive. Changed. The reunion. Lucien didn't speak. He walked to me slowly like he was afraid I would vanish. You're real, he whispered. I smiled. So are you. He cupped my face, searching for fear, regret, anything. Why? He asked. Why would you give up your life for mine? I took his hands. I didn't give it up, I said. I chose a longer one with you. Lucien broke. Centuries of restraint shattered as he pulled me into his arms. And for the first time, the monster cried. The new balance. The covenant watched silently. This changes things, they said. Yes, Lucien replied calmly. It does. They offered him a throne. Control. Authority. Power over their kind. Lucien refused. I will not rule through fear, he said. I've done that. He took my hand. I will rule through choice. The covenant vanished. Not defeated, but displaced. Because something stronger than balance had entered the world. Love with teeth. A life rewritten. We returned to the city together. Not as billionaire and bride. Not as monster and human. But as equals. The mansion felt warmer. The silence no longer heavy. Lucien slept every night now. And I watched him, knowing eternity wasn't a curse anymore. It was a promise. Final vow. On the rooftop, overlooking the city that once feared him, Lucien knelt. I married you with a contract, he said. I want to marry you with a vow. There were no witnesses. No audience. Just the stars. I will walk eternity with you, he said. Not ahead. Not behind. Beside. I smiled through tears. I will remind you what it means to feel, I replied. Forever. Epilogue. The legend. They still whisper about Lucien Vale. About the billionaire who never aged. About the woman who changed him. They call him a monster. A king. A myth. But they never mention the truth. That the most dangerous thing in the world is not an immortal with power. It's an immortal who learned how to love. And I was the woman who chose forever.